Are you spending more time searching for the perfect sewing machine or actually sewing? Because if you don't have a sewing machine right now, the answer is you're probably spending your time searching for the perfect machine, yeah? And the truth is, the longer you keep searching for this perfect machine, the longer you're not actually sewing anything. This is one of the first problems that beginner sewists face when they try to start the hobby of sewing, and they waste weeks, hours, months, if it's really bad, looking for this perfect sewing machine. The truth is, you can sew on any sewing machine. It really doesn't matter which machine you pick. For example, I got started on my mom's junky, outdated, old sewing machine, and I made tons of clothes in high school, including my high school prom dress. So literally any sewing machine is better than no sewing machine. So let's make a decision and move forward so you can actually start sewing. Now, that being said, I'm sure that's an unsatisfying answer, which is why I'm still going to go through and tell you the features that actually do make a difference. There are some features that will make sewing easier, more fun, a little bit quicker for you, and there are some features that we just do not need to care about. Now, if there's another feature specifically that I don't address here that you want answered, let me know in the comments below, and I will either make a follow-up video or answer you down there. But for now, let's help you make a decision so you can finally get sewing, okay? So the first thing that we're going to talk about is mechanical versus electronic sewing machines. So these are when you talk about home sewing machines, these are the two big types that you're going to find. And it's really easy to tell the difference. A mechanical sewing machine looks like this, and it has these big knobs on it that you can turn to adjust things on your sewing machine. Now, alternatively, you could have an electronic or computerized sewing machine, which looks like this. You see on this machine, we don't have those knobs. Instead, we have an LED screen with buttons. So you can look at any sewing machine and be able to immediately tell if it's mechanical or electronic. Now, the price point, there is a difference here. So the mechanical sewing machines are going to run somewhere between 80 to 200 USD, and the electronic sewing machines are going to run somewhere more around 150 to 300 USD. Depends on the model, depends on the features, but in general, the electronic sewing machines are going to be a bit pricier than the mechanical. And if you have it in your budget, I would recommend going for the electronic, not for the reasons you think, but honestly, electronic sewing machines will sew at slower speeds than mechanical sewing machines. So for an example, here's how slow I'm able to go on my mechanical sewing machine versus here's how slow I can go on the electronic sewing machine. So for absolute beginners, having this kind of speed control at slow speeds tends to make people feel a little bit more comfortable. So if it's in your budget, an electronic sewing machine can be a better option, but don't worry, I learned to sew on a mechanical sewing machine. A lot of my students have as well. It's totally doable. The electronic just makes it a little bit easier. Okay, now the next feature that I would highly recommend is an automatic needle threader. Now, I'm going to do a quick demo here, but if you'd like a full explanation of how to use this feature, check out my video I've linked above or below. But basically, instead of having to squint and try to get that tiny little thread to the tiny little hole on the needle, this mechanical contraption will help you make this process much easier and much faster. I use mine all the time, and it is one feature that I would pay extra to have. And the third feature that I would recommend is a top load bobbin. Now, your sewing machine has two threads, a top and a bottom, and the bottom thread has a special name called a bobbin. Now, there are two ways that you can put a bobbin into a sewing machine, and it will either look like this, which is a top load bobbin, which means that when you look here near the needle on your sewing machine, you can actually see the bobbin under this clear plastic lid. Okay? you look at your needle area and you don't see anything, like on this machine, then what we need to do is remove the accessory storage, open this little plastic door, and there is where your bobbin lives. Now, this is called a top load bobbin, and this is called a front load bobbin. Now, both are totally doable, but a little bit easier and a little bit faster is the top load bobbin. Okay, so most sewing machines, if you're buying a newer one, do come with this feature. Most sewing machines are going to this option now. And it does make threading your machine as a beginner a little bit easier. Okay, now those are really the only 3 features that I think really make a difference for you when you're getting started. Other than that, pretty much any sewing machine is going to have similar features and work in similar ways. So there aren't any massive differences or super crazy standout features that you must have or would be really useful. Again, if there's a specific feature you have a question about, let me know in the comments below. But in general, if you find a machine that has those 3 features and there are in general good reviews for it, that's a machine that I would recommend. Okay? Now, sewing machine features that you just do not need to care about at all because they mean absolutely nothing are the free arm. Sewing machine boxes will constantly tout this as being a very big, amazing feature. And while the free arm is very useful, every sewing machine has this. I've never seen a sewing machine without this feature. So it's really, you don't need to look for this. It just is on every sewing machine. So basically, just so you know what it is, when we look at a sewing machine here at the needle area and we remove the accessory storage, we make the area that we're sewing on top of smaller. And you can use this to sew small things like cuffs and pant legs. Makes it makes sewing these things a little bit easier. Presser feet. When you look at a sewing machine, they will typically try to tell you, oh, this one comes with 7 presser feet. This one comes with 10 presser feet. This one comes with 12 presser feet. The truth is that 90% of sewing happens with a universal presser foot, which comes with every single sewing machine. As well, every single sewing machine comes with a universal foot, a zipper foot, a buttonhole foot. Yeah, usually those 3. And those are the 3 that you use 99% of the time. Until you actually start sewing and figure out what you like and what you don't like, it's unlikely you're going to even need any of those other sewing feet. And as someone who's sewn for 15 plus years, I personally have used other sewing feet than those 3, maybe a dozen times, and for very specific projects. So every sewing machine is going to come with the 3 feet that you need. And if for some reason in the future you want to add more sewing feet, you can buy sets online and just buy a set with 10 more sewing feet for whatever you need, or just a specific one that you're wanting. You don't need to pay extra for your sewing machine to get this until you know that you're going to actually use it. The other one that I think is very silly, but this is also preferential, is stitches. So a sewing machine will sometimes say 60 stitches, 100 stitches, 200 stitches. This is so misleading. When you sew, 90% of the time, you are going to use a straight stitch, and the other 10% of the time, you're going to use a zigzag stitch. And every single sewing machine is going to do both of these stitches. All of those extra stitches that they're adding on there, the extra 60, 100, 200, are going to be stitches that are decorative. So if you know that you want to put lots of pretty extra little top stitching and patterns and things on your clothing, maybe you want these extra stitches and you can look at them and see if you think they're pretty and if you like them, then maybe it's worth having the extra stitches. But if you truly just want to start sewing and putting things together and you're not going to be doing lots of top stitching and decorating, this is extra. You do not need it. I have never used it on any of my sewing machines, but it's also just not my preference or my style. So that one's a little bit more preferential, but in general, it's not a need. It's just a nice to have. So I wouldn't base your decision on a sewing machine on that alone. Okay. So those are the three features that I think that actually make sewing easier and more fun. And the three features that I just do not base your decision on. I don't think that they're going to really change anything for you in your sewing experience. With this information, I hope that you are able to finally make a decision, get a sewing machine, and start sewing. If you have other questions about specific features, let me know below. But I do want to give you one more bonus tip here, is that if you don't want to spend an arm and a leg on a new sewing machine and they're just a little bit out of your price point, which is totally fair, some machines can start getting really up there. I want to let you in on a secret that I personally have used the last decade to never pay full price for any sewing machine. And that is Facebook Marketplace. It is so common for people to buy a sewing machine and then either never use it or use it so much that they realize they want to upgrade. So I have found lots of wonderful, nearly brand new machines or in very good condition sewing machines on Facebook Marketplace for half or a third of the original selling price. So if price is one of the things that has been keeping you from getting a sewing machine, ask your friends and family first as well. I totally forgot that. But yes, a lot of people just have friends or family who might have a sewing machine laying around somewhere. When I first got started, it was my mom's sewing machine. But after that, I did just I had friends and families and friends' families who had machines that they weren't using anymore. So ask around your social network. You might be surprised. But if nothing turns up, then try Facebook Marketplace. It has so many good machines, so many good options. I really have to stop getting on there because I think I own 8+ machines now. It's too many. But there's so many good deals. I just think that you should, if you're looking for a sewing machine at a good price, check out Facebook Marketplace. It can be a great option. Now, once you've picked your sewing machine and you're ready for the next step, which is actually using it, I've put together a free course on how to unbox your machine, get everything out, and actually start sewing in 30 minutes or less. So if you'd like to grab it for yourself, so when you get your machine, you're ready to get going, it's down below. And I just can't wait to see what you make with your brand new sewing machine once you make the decision. So make that decision and let's get sewing.